In a previous video on active and passive mixing, I suggested that it was possible to use a multiple as a mixer. I stated that this is not the best practice for mixing. This video corrects that suggestion. Technically, in order to mix signals passively, you must have a resistor on each input to mix audio or control signals. Note also that a passive mix results in an average, not an arithmetic sum of the voltage inputs. Some modular synthesizer modules, such as VCOs, have a current limiting resistor on the output. This may suffice for the resistor for the input to the passive mixer. The problem with this approach is that you must reference the module schematics to verify, number one, that there is an output resistor, and number two, what the value of the resistor is. Again, using a multiple as a mixer is not a recommended practice. A better approach would be to use a dedicated passive or active mixer module. You could, number one, purchase a mixer module, or number two, convert an existing multiple to a passive mixer by rewiring it with resistors, or number three, purchase a DIY kit. If you want to do it yourself, I'd recommend a proper passive mixer kit. In this video, we'll look at building out an inexpensive passive mixer kit from synthrotech.com. See the description for a link to this product, and no, it is not an affiliate link. The Mix Kit is a 3-input, 1-output passive mixer with attenuators on the 3 inputs. It uses only 2 HP of space in your Eurorack case. Finally, it's not expensive, as of summer 2024 is about $20 with shipping and handling. The kit is very well documented. See a link in the description. If you've ever done any DIY kit building, this should be easy for you. Here's the schematic. Passive mixers do not work for precision mixing of control voltages like the 1 volt per octave keyboard control voltages. A more appropriate use case is to mix audio. Again, note that the output is an average of the inputs, not an arithmetic sum. A more interesting use case is mixing multiple modulation inputs, for example, multiple waveforms from the same VCO. The output could be used to imprecisely modulate a VCO or a filter cutoff frequency. It could also be used as an input to a sample and hold module. If you put the mix output voltage into a quantizer for pitch control, you can generate some interesting sequences. First, let's install the passive mixer. There are 2 panel blanks on the System 55 which are 2 HP wide. Note that the mix module is passive. It does not require power, so we don't need a power cable. We will just remove the 2 HP panel blank and replace it with the 2 HP mix module. Now we're ready to do some passive mix examples. First, let's mix several waveforms from a 921 VCO and listen to the various mixes. We'll take 3 waveforms, triangle, sawtooth, and square, put them into inputs 1, 2, and 3 on the mixer, and take the output and go to our output mixer. So let's bring up the volumes and hear each of these waveforms in turn. And now let's average them together. Now I'd like to show you a trick when you have a sawtooth and a square wave from the same oscillator, so they're exactly in phase. There's your sawtooth. There's your square wave. Bring in the sawtooth. Now mix in the square wave. And suddenly you have a sawtooth that's an octave higher. We'll bring in the triangle so you can hear the fundamental of the original octave. And then as you change the mix, you can actually balance between the two octaves. Which is pretty amazing. Next, we'll run the 921 VCO in low frequency mode. We won't be listening to the mix. We'll listen to one of the 921B oscillators. We'll connect the mix output to the DC FM input of the 921B oscillator to make some pitch-based sound effects. We're going to change our outputs. We're going to connect to the downward sloping sawtooth, and we're going to connect to the sine versus the triangle. Now let's try the mix output as an input to the sample and hold module. The output of the sample and hold will go into the same DC FM input of the 921B oscillator. So our mix out will go into the input of the sample and hold, and the output of the sample and hold will go into the DC mod that we used before. Now we'll be able to hear the rhythmic pitch changes as the sample and hold clock updates the voltage going to the 921B. And let's change to the triangle. And we can hear the triangle. Now let's use the downward ramp. It's an interesting rhythm. That's an interesting sample and hold effect, but it's not an in-tune melody or sequence. let's replace the sample and hold with a quantizer. So we'll take our mix output, send that into the quantizer, and then we'll take the quantizer out and put that into our main 1 volt per octave input. And the only thing we need to do now is get a clock, and we'll use the clock out from the sample and hold module. And now let's listen to what's happening. Let's just get only the triangle and bring up the volume. Now we're getting a little closer to a musical melody. In conclusion, I don't recommend passive mixing by simply patching multiple outputs into a multiple module. A proper passive mixer module is better for getting an average voltage from several input signals. If you want an arithmetic sum, use an active mixer. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.